Good morning and
Okay, so calling to order the Town Finance Community Housing Oversight Committee of Monday, November 10th. Is anybody recording? I think so. This meeting is on Zoom, so it's recorded on Zoom, but we do not have any. Okay, so first on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment online?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, then moving on. Then next we're going to vote on the minutes, starting with the August 11th minutes. Any discussion of those?
No comment. No comment. I wasn't present. That means
We do have form, do we not?
yes.
Yes.
Is I'd welcome a motion on the August 11th minutes if we don't have any other discussion.
Motion to approve the August 11th minutes.
Second. We'll do a roll call vote. Rhonda,
Aye.
Avery, John,
I will abstain as I wasn't present.
Denise abstains. Chair votes aye. And on the September 8th minutes.
Present for that. I have no comments on the meeting minutes and I would move their acceptance. Second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll come to a vote then. Rhonda,
Aye.
Avery, aye. John,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Denise, and the chair votes aye. Before we go to the reimbursement request, I just want to note that Rick Zambone has tendered his resignation for health reasons, and we are actively looking for replacement. So if anybody knows of anyone who they would like to, encourage, who might be interested, we are actively recruiting for that.
was he at large member or did he represent a specific? Okay.
Select board at large member.
Okay.
And if you're interested, there's an application online.
Yes. And I can get it to anyone, or Cecilia can, so that whoever might be interested could fill that out and go through the process. Okay, so let's go to our reimbursement requests.
Yes.
And Cecilia.
So we have 6 reimbursement requests in front of us today for 2 separate articles. I will start with the annual town meeting 2023, Article 23, which is appropriate for housing authority, seabeds, and cook preservation. These are requests number 20 and 21. They are for the months of February and I believe March. Yes, March of 2025. This is the article that is reimbursed at 21.2%. So you'll notice the reimbursement recommended amount is different than the total invoice. They have all been paid. I have attached the associated Cambridge Housing Authority reports to the Needham Housing Authority for the months of February and March, which indicate that these were for task order number 5. The requests are in the amount of $2,271.58 and $3,693.57. If both of these are approved, that would leave $100,507.55 remaining in the article. So
So I just have the same observation that I've had throughout this. I mean, if you just look at these two, and I'll just pick one, for example, there's a project manager, Chris Moyer, who recorded 66 hours towards our project in February, and then 100 hours towards our project in March. And we see nothing other than the time that he started and the time that he finished, and then a minutes of a board meeting where his name isn't mentioned. So it's 160 hours that we're paying for, and listen, I'm not trying to make a big, the amount is small, but it's the point of it is that I have no idea what his work product is. What he did, how it benefited. And I just find it hard to pay a bill that is just strictly a time. Without any association of what this professional did for 160 hours over these 2 months to benefit the town of Needham. So that's just we've gone over this before and we get it again. And I don't know if someone's not listening or refuses to listen or whatever, but Rhonda picked up on it in her email that she sent leading to the meeting. And I just think it puts us in a very difficult position because we want to be supporters, but they make it very difficult for us to do that by just not giving us the information about, what this person did and how he benefited us for those 160 hours during those 2 months. So that's my observation and comment.
Other discussion?
Yeah. So I'm sorry I'm not there. You might be able to hear that I don't sound great, so I just wanted to spare you all my germs. I guess I just, I agree. I think it's really getting harder. And looking through the materials, it also appears that the project has changed the scope of work. It appears that the cook piece of the project is being postponed and some contracts are being renegotiated. I just think we don't really have a background. Not only do we not know what they've done, but we don't really have a background of how the project is going and where it's going and the budget, the schedule, the costs. I don't see how we can provide any level of oversight or understand what we're paying for without that information. So, and I have to think that the housing authority has all that information because they're running the project. So, um, those are my comments.
So I will observe that these articles are still early in this year before we really started to say we wanted to see this stuff. I think the comments from both of you, from my perspective, are very much on point. I guess what I would like to see is on a going forward basis, this is still before, we really asked for this. So I'm more okay with this from the past, but as we, get into the major project going forward, I think, a change in process is what we.
So I understand that. And the point is that we've raised this over the last several months. It would have been easy for them to say, let's get Chris's work product for 160 hours for those 2 months and present it as part of this package. I don't understand why that couldn't be done. And it's not like we're saying this for the first time tonight. It was all said prior to these being put to us. And so I think it's a little bit different in that regard, that there's been opportunities for that to occur. And I'm disappointed those opportunities haven't been taken up by the persons who are seeking the funds.
Yeah, but I actually, I think that we're not even asking for a great deal of detail. I mean, I personally satisfied with what lawyers used to call a summary bill. And within the summary, there would be a statement about what it is that Bill, one of those timekeepers did during that period of time. My concern in terms of our role as oversight is, look at the third, our work being reviewed. I mean, what is it? We're, the audit of the teacher. What does it look like? I mean, we're approving these things kind of blindly. I think that by us, we can dig in a little and read these memos that explain what they've done in the prior month, and from that we can discern what it is that how the Cambridge Housing Authority has done. But it's a great deal of burden on us, and a whole lot of explaining. That why is it that you approved this? Well, we went back and looked at these memos and we discerned what it was. We did this, we operated in good faith. But again, it seems to me a summary paragraph from Cambridge Housing Authority. would suffice at least for me personally, a summary bill, which is something in the file that shows that we did our due diligence.
Right, and even if you just go with what they were given and just look at the status reports of the boards, they're essentially the same. You know, for both of those months, there, you know, there's a couple of changes and a couple additions in the March one that aren't in the February one, but most of what's in the February one is repeated in the March one. So I don't even think you could, you know, that even that, and that's all we've been given. You know, none of that speaks to what did Chris Moyer do for 160 hours during those 2 months. Neither of those two reports speak to that. So I think for us to do our job the way I expect the residents of the town expect us to, we need to have more than this to, at least I do, to support paying these at this time. I'm not saying I won't pay them, or I'm not, I personally, but we won't pay them, but I also think it's our responsibility to make sure the right information's there in order to do that.
One other comment, I was looking, sorry, I don't know how to jump in, but the one schedule that I found on the project said that by May of this year, we were supposed to be into construction bidding and that we're supposed to be ready to do construction in early next year. I read the memo that I was looking at sounds like we're 2 years away from starting the cook piece and that Seabeds is going to go forward. And I'm assuming that's because we need to make sure that that goes forward for the Linden project, because we need those vouchers. But I just, I'm just guessing. I just don't have any, I don't know how, I don't have any idea what the schedule is or, the only thing I can say is that the two amounts of money that we're overseeing, one is down to about $11,000. It's nearly gone, the one that started at 150, and the other one is down to $100,000. I don't know what other money is available, but is there enough money to get to the end product for with the pre-development work? I have no idea. I couldn't find enough information to know if that was the case.
It seems that we as a committee probably to lay out exactly what we need to see. You know, even if it's at a very high level, just to make our expectations crystal clear.
That's fine. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to take that on and to at least provide us with something that we can look at to go forward with, you know, to the parties who are ultimately looking to get paid, which is the Cambridge Housing Authority, and the party that's looking to get reimbursed, which would be the Housing Authority. So, and I think that, you know, we've talked about it before, a great template is what the PPBC does for each of their projects. They lay out a budget and, you know, the town has appropriated $1 million and they're planning to spend it, you know, this amount on this, and this, and they track it as you go along and you say, okay, $1 million is now at 500 because we have encumbered 500 with this contract to the architect. And that architect $500,000 contract we've now paid 4 invoices, reducing it to $250,000. So it's a template that you know basically is a screenshot, so to speak, of the project that you can track on a monthly and a consistent basis. So the questions that Ron and Avery asked about, just we'd be able to know what it is has been encumbered against these things, and then to measure what we're being requested to pay against what that summary is. And I can get that, and I mean there's nothing new or novel about it. It's actually routine.
So Chad, this has been an ongoing conversation at this table. And I was very mindful of your comments of how dated this information is that we're looking at. But moving forward, isn't it my understanding that we are putting on paper exactly how we want to be reported to, and those discussions are taking place? I think Celia, is that something that you've been looking at with town council and talking about language going forward, how this committee will be reported to?
Yes, and there's existing language in the grant agreements that indicate what is required by the housing authority. To have, which includes a project budget and a project schedule and, the ability to share records at, the request of the town.
I think that all of this input is very valuable. It's consistent with everything we've said, and it is how we're moving forward. And I'm mindful of what the chair said, we're looking at things that are dated now and we didn't set up. Okay.
Sorry, the language that I was speaking to in the grant agreement is in the grant agreement for these, at least the CBED stuff article.
So, which we are not, none of these,
But none of these are the
none of
big,
these, this is in the old, right? I'm speaking that.
There, that's language in the grant agreement for the old articles.
Oh,
That's been
these.
existing language.
Okay.
Okay, so that would probably be helpful to have, right? And we could pivot from that. I guess the question I have is when, well, I think like, when is it that we expect that we're gonna be getting better reporting or the kind of reporting we're asking for from Needham Housing? You have some understanding about that, or is it dated from first time that we raised it, say, 6 months ago? And so would be any bills beginning, I'm just sure it's beginning, say, June 1, 2025, or activity beginning June 1, 2020 going forward? So we're talking about, I'm trying to figure out, when do we start, when we say this is the old stuff, we're gonna apply this, we're gonna.
I think one of the challenges, let's look at your face sheet, right, the first one we got. And for Seabr's Cook, it says, you know, if we'd approve the two that were slated against that, that leaves $100,500. But as we sit here today, we don't know if that's actually been spent, but it hasn't caught up to us to pay, or that hasn't been spent yet. And that's, you know, what we've been looking for from day one, and that's the, you know, to me, there's a big difference between saying that's what's left, because it hasn't been spent, or that's what's there, but we're gonna get bills saying that all of it's been spent already. That's, you can't, we don't know that, and I think that we should know that.
I believe we're reimbursing.
Right.
Money spent.
But, well, I don't know. I mean, reimbursements come to us, but as I look at this, I don't know if this 104,000 that says amount remaining has been spent, and they're gonna be looking to us to reimburse it, or it hasn't been spent yet.
So we're fortunate to have the chair of the board, Needham Housing Authority, sitting with us. Is it appropriate to ask him to speak to this?
Yes. Is it Reginald? Huh.
I'm ready.
So I guess the question is, you know, you've been present during these meetings where we've talked about wanting to have a bit more detail on what has been accomplished with the hours, you know, that have been billed. And, you know, I don't know when exactly we started talking about this, sometime over the summer, but, you know, do we have a path forward to getting more of this detail? Has it started? Are there questions that you need answered in order to do this? And I guess generally, if you could speak to that.
Well, I don't think we have it resolved. That's the question. And I think what John was proposing to do, which is to have the committee define what they are looking for, as opposed to us trying to guess and getting it wrong, probably a good idea.
Well, John, if you did
Sure.
want to bring that forward to the next meeting, and then we could just discuss it and.
Maybe I can make a couple other comments too on
Please.
the other questions. So I understand the committee's frustration of not knowing what's happened in the last couple of months. But the committee dropped back to a quarterly status reporting thing, so we're not preparing a monthly status report for these meetings. We are expecting to have a fairly substantial update, obviously, next month. To answer Rhonda's question, the status of the project is pretty much as it was reported at the September session. So if you pull out the presentation that was given then, there isn't a material change to it right now, and that status report said that we're heading to construction starting in midsummer, June or July or August next year. We hope to have a financial close at June or May. That we had visibility of all the funding sources. We had a bungled answer on your question about one of the funding sources that is stuck in my memory, and the reason I did not, I gave a mealy-mouthed answer to it, is that the amount of money that I was saying we didn't have a plan B for, we knew had been awarded to us at the time you asked me the question. We had been requested by the governor's office to embargo it until today, when it was announced. And I'm happy to pass around the press releases, but that's a different topic. That was the 1.1 million. But to Rhonda's question of why is it all of a sudden she's discovering that the Cook project has been detached from what we proposed this time last year, is that's what happened in the middle of the winter when the Charles River Center came in for a very substantial award from CPHC funds. And, the town and CRC and us working together said, okay, we can step aside on the Cook part of it. And we untangled the Siamese twins of the two projects, in mid-flight last winter. And then working with the town, presented just the seabeds portion of it, because there wasn't enough, CPA funding support for the project. And that was reported in September, and we'll
I apologize. I may have missed that meeting. I apologize.
yeah, but we're only having quarterly status reports, so, that's, can go back to monthly, and maybe should go back to monthly if we are really going to construction, obviously next summer, or even in the spring when we're getting close to trying to close the financing. Obviously, there's a lot more going on. I'm forgetting other questions that were asked in the last few minutes, but I think we're not giving you a monthly status report with this stuff. Somebody mentioned the CPA grant agreement for 3.2 million and trying to solve this on a go-forward basis. There's a lot more money involved. There's 10 times more town funds, and by the way, the town funds are only 15%, but an incredibly valuable 15% of the overall project that's weighing in the same 20 million plus or minus that we reported in September. Cecilia and Katie and Chris Heap sent us a draft grant agreement. When was it? September-ish or something like that, somewhere in the mid to end of. And we turned it around internally and delivered a markup and saying, here's some issues. And one of the things we put in that as a comment is we really need to work out more detail on the reporting. Now, we weren't proposing what that was, but if we are not doing a good job, I don't think I'm speaking against the Needham Housing Authority to say that, this is a good time to define what that good job is, not so much in the context of the remaining 100,000, and John is right. We have spent some of that 100,000, but we're not reporting on that. You know, it's not a lot until we started up 25% CD activity in August. We reported that in September, so we're now charging full speed ahead towards closing in June. To your question, Rhonda, and maybe you did miss, I think you did miss that meeting, and so, you know, I'm not trying to be critical or anything, but to your question, to answer your question, the 100% CDs are gonna be done in January or so. Everything's being put out to bid in February, March. It's gonna be a chapter 149A project, no filed sub bids, I hope. And we also are in the unusual position of picking our GC, because we're not allowed to pick the GC now when you normally have a GC on board and you're doing CDs because of mysterious chapter 149A things that I can't fully explain myself, but it is true. And we're working around that. And we hope to have concrete bids in March, which of course we have to have that to go to financial close. We have to have that to get building permits that are going to be pulled. We've submitted also last week to Cecilia, actually it was really to Katie and Heidi Frail, a request to extend us the benefit again of no building permit fees, which is the town's policy anyway, but it needs to be confirmed in writing for the closing. And what was the third thing we do? Oh, no pilot agreement, so no payment in lieu of taxes. You know, we had it. Nobody can find whatever agreements existed back in 1980. Neither our assessor's office doesn't have it. We don't have it. Nobody has it. So we took what we negotiated for the Linden project and just cloned it and recycled it and proposed it last week as a good starting point, since we had already agreed on that for the Linden project. So that's a brief status update as to where we are at.
And that's all with respect to CBEDs, correct? I just want to be.
CBEDs, yes. The Linden project, if you want, it is right now been on hold. But as we reported in September, we got turned down in August for the winter 25 round as expected. We're now assessing how we can submit a credible proposal by December 2nd, which will be before we have the next TCHOC status meeting, or do we give it a pass because we still, as you remember, or somebody remembered here, if you remember it, we need that those 41 Faircloth units. But you know, there's pros and cons as what we're doing. So that's being very actively debated behind the scenes. But right now, nothing is happening with the Linden project except for, I think we're going to be starting construction document activity up again, although it's not a usual thing to do. We're at 70% right now. You usually don't start it up until you get back in the game, but we have about $300,000 of, thank you very much, our $1.25 million ARPA grant still left, and has to be spent by December 31st, 2026. Or guess what? It goes back to, I don't know where it goes back, probably back to the federal government, which is not quite the right answer. And the judgment is that we can actually do, you know, once we confirm everything, we safely restart going from 70% to 100% CDs for the Linden project, without wasting money or anything like that. And taking advantage of that amazing funding opportunity that we got many years ago, actually. What is it, 21, I think.
A couple of things on that. So if I'm looking, see, I guess on the third page of what was sent out,
Yeah.
which is the schedule of town meeting appropriations.
Yep.
I don't see on there the May 25 appropriation for CBEDs.
No, I have not added that on there. We don't have an executed grant agreement, and also I just forgot to add it on there because we haven't received a disbursement request, so I will make sure that's on there.
Okay,
For
so
the
I
next
think,
time. Yeah.
and the reason for the not executed grant agreement is what?
The town just received feedback last week on the grant agreement that was sent back in September,
Whose feedback?
the housing authorities.
So I think it's important to get that on here, and I
Yes.
think both for that one. And industry, which is on there already, I think this template, which I'll prepare and give to everyone. Will be great to say, okay, this is the amount the town meeting is appropriated. What have you contracted against this so far? And what has been billed on that so far? Because that way we won't be caught in the position we're caught in now, which is that money's been spent without sort of forecasting ahead of time, when it was gonna get spent and what it was gonna get spent on. So for those, I mean, those are the two big numbers, 5.5 million and 3.2, I think, or something like that,
Yeah.
wasn't it? So I'll have the template for that, so we can.
John, if I may add to what you're saying, obviously this $240,000 grant is only 21% of what we are actually spending in order to get to the point of being able to, start construction next year. So there's other funding sources. We might be able to show that what we're doing with with the remaining 100,000 and change here, but I think you want to make sure that you're getting all the other funding sources and that we also have visibility on where that's coming from. Or obviously, it's only 20% of what we're spending to get there.
I think that would be very helpful, Rich, to have the whole budget set out so that we can just see what portion of it is the money that we're overseeing. But
I think
also
it would be
it just sort of makes it look, it's easier to say that we're confident that you've got enough money to get to the end point of financing, if we have the whole picture.
So, number one, I want to thank you for the update. I hope you circle back and have a moment to celebrate the grant.
I have copies for everybody when we get to the happy part here.
Over $1 million. This is incredible. And it continues our path forward in such uncertain time. It just shows the state standing by us in the ways that the state can presently. So I hope you circle back and enjoy it. This update is helpful. I would say respectfully that with my understanding that Celia and Katie King and Chris Heap are meeting about these reporting requirements, and knowing that Joan would like to get involved with that, I'd like to be part of those discussions as well. Because I want us to be very mindful that the PBBC, which is one of the most extraordinary models probably for any municipality in Commonwealth and other towns that have tried to do things that has full responsibility and fiduciary responsibility for the project. TCHOC we don't have full responsibility for the project, and we don't have fiduciary responsibility. We have accounting responsibility. And I want to make sure that we are able to demonstrate, given the guidelines that Celia and the general counsel meet together to make sure that the request is consistent with the town meeting articles, given that they are also making sure that in that process that the bill has been paid and we are reimbursing. So we'd just like to help us think about how we're actually doing that, and I would very much like to be part of the project. All around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
And hopefully just a meeting, John, not asking for a subcommittee, but I think we should have a meeting for this.
I guess I'm thinking two things based on all the conversations we've heard. One is that we just need to know at a base level if somebody is billing hours. Roughly, what did they do? It doesn't have to be 6-minute or something, but in general, what did they accomplish with the 66 hours, 100 hours, whatever? Which need not be in excruciating detail, but in some way to know what was done, right? And then The other thing that I'm hearing that we want is, and this isn't just for the town money, this is maybe for the entire project, knowing that the town is funding a piece of it. Sort of where is the project? You know, and where's the project on its budget? We're not expecting you to break it all down for, because it's all money going into the same pot, right? And thinking that this is something that you on the board of the Needham Housing Authority needs to know, right? You need to know where you are on your project, and your partners, you know, need to know that as well. So it's, you know, ideally not creating new work. This would be something that you would want to know yourself as managing the project. And then in terms of, you know, specific hours billed, you know, we've had this conversation before, but, and I think we need to set out exactly what we're looking for, but that's really to throw on to your partners. That's for Cambridge Housing Authority to do, not you. But I think if we can make it very clear what we're looking for, and if we are asking for something that is, you know, not more than what we need, right? That something that accomplishes the oversight task without added bells and whistles.
And if I could say, Rhonda, what I hear in your comments is that you want to make sure that we're going to have successful completion of this project, right?
And
So
I'm al-
certainly for us to receive the quarterly status reports, that you continually to attend these meetings as the chair has requested, I think is very important. So
I mean,
we
I
all
guess
want what you
always
do.
saw our role as being you know, not only oversight, but sort of advocates as well. We want this to be incredibly successful. And I'd like to just know that I want to feel comfortable. And I do apologize. I did sound like I missed a big meeting, but I do want to be able to say, oh yes, like we've seen it all. Like it's going great. It's, you know, the money's being spent incredibly wisely. And I just feel like that's also, you know, we want to be comfortable saying that and feeling so that's why the additional information would be helpful.
May I also add to this discussion, which I think is very constructive, and, you know, we need to figure this out. It's too frustrating for everybody. There's too much important stuff at stake. So I just want to describe the Needham Housing Authority's work process to deal with exactly the same issue. Only there's one big difference. We haven't paid the invoice yet. You know, so, you know, money is actually going out the door as a result of our oversight. And so what our process is similar to what you're talking about, but much more detailed and much more immediate. In other words, we receive the report that we are receiving there, but we meet monthly, and there's a standing agenda item every month for years now on the DRI, whatever's going on, and the consultants come. Whatever's going on, whatever's going right, whatever's going on, they show up when needed. Now it's going to be like every month again, but you know, when Linden is suspended since last, you know, it's not for that, but certainly for this one, monthly, and we're talking about what happened in the previous month. We may not have received the invoice. We haven't received the invoice at that point, but we want to know exactly what is being done every single month. And every board member gets a chance to ask any questions they might have, and not just of Housing Authority, but of Cheryl Gosman, our director of facilities, Greg Gillis, you know, all the parties that are involved. There are lots of them these days. And that's when we actually have the invoices unpaid that are on the warrant for that particular meeting. And those are approved by the board. The board gets every single one of the invoices that you're talking about here, plus that additional information every month. And then votes to approve every single one of those. And not only do we vote to approve it, but we have a process where 2 commissioners have to sign every single check that goes out the door to pay anybody, the Cambridge Housing Authority or anybody else. You know, like literally your John Hancock is on with all the backup stuff.
Well-
That's what we do.
So, right,
So how can we, make this a complementary process is really where I'm going.
I have a follow-up question to that. So if you guys are discussing and approving, say, one of these with the 100 hours.
Yeah.
Of Chris Morley?
Chris, yeah. Project management, and Chris Moyer.
Okay, so how do you determine what he did?
Because he's there and we know what he's doing every month and we're involved with him on a daily basis, not the board, of course, but. And all these things that are you get a very summary of it. It's kind of there isn't a detailed, every 6 minute kind of attorney thing that's needed, so that hasn't been needed for the process, it doesn't exist.
No,
and it's
we're
being
not
done. No,
asking
I'm just
for that.
saying, but I'm just trying to describe how we do it, which is it's very much what happened last month, within the last month, it tends to involve the board whenever there's some decision that, like, our current thing today, this month is authorization to proceed from 25% to 75% CDs. And we said, okay, we want another update, make sure all the funding is there, just to take the very issue that we were talking about here, to make sure that it's all there, and we want Cheryl Gosman to swear on a stack of Bibles in front of everybody else in a public meeting, that we have not just this money, which we do know we have, but all the other sources of funding, the other 80%, so that we're not going to be stuck with a whole bunch of bills that we can't pay down the road. And so that's what we do every week, every month.
Just on this precise question, just 66 hours of Chris. When you guys are approving it, do you know what, and I know you say you know what he does, but like, does somebody somewhere verbalize what that produced?
I'm involved with all of it.
But I mean,
so
is it, are
It-
there words?
to the extent
Like,
that
is there-
no, no.
is there-
There-
Is there a description?
No, there is.
So first.
No, there's no piece of paper. To the
No piece of paper.
No, to the extent it's in our heads, because we're living this every single day.
So we need it from somebody's head on a piece of paper.
I don't know what you need, but I'm really looking forward to defining that concretely and putting some time in. Not so much because of where we are right now looking backwards here, but we are obviously going to be sending some very serious amounts of town money and everybody else's money as well. And so I think putting the effort in to making sure we're all absolutely happy, whether or not we have it in the past for things that have already happened. We're in November now. These bills are from the first and second quarter, so I think we need to get ourselves set up for this, and whatever we do, I think is going to be paving the way for what we need to do with the 5.5 million for the Linden Terrace project. And dare I say what is it, 3.3 whatever for the CRC project, so it's important to get. And it is different from the way PBC runs things. There is a whole different way of things being done that I don't fully understand. But we have to make sure that the way it is done under chapter 149A or B or whatever it is, but supports generating easily the amount of detail that the town needs to make sure that their 15% of the project is being spent wisely.
Do any of the other funders want reporting?
I don't know about the other funders, what they want, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't even know what you're asking about.
Well,
Does the state require?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, no, obviously I'm doing this, I'm riding this, roller coaster for the first time here.
So I have.
But we have two great development partners, by the way. I just want to say, I don't want to throw Cambridge Housing Authority or anybody else under the bus.
Yeah.
They are terrific.
Yeah, nobody's trying to throw anybody under the bus. So I have from time to time listened into the Needham Housing Authority commission meetings. But I have never accessed the minutes. Do you think part of that discussion is captured, or most of, if not all, of that discussion is captured in the minutes?
No.
Okay.
It,
Why would
it's
that
too
be?
much to discussion. It's, our minutes are, are not intended to be a transcript of what was said in the meeting. And it's very complicated. Even finding somebody who can write minutes that captures at least the high level essence of what was discussed has been a real challenge for us.
It's complicated listening.
But, the recordings are all there. Every meeting, anybody wants to take the time listening to the recordings, it's all there. But, that's too much. That a lot of elapsed time needed for that.
So
We need to find a
who prepared
solution.
this sheet, this status report to the board? Is this prepared by CHA? This is
Yes,
for each of in our package.
yes.
So there are, I'm going back to the contracts now. So we have the grant agreements that have reporting requirements, ones that are signed have reporting requirements in them. So I think, yeah, I don't want to define what the working group will look at, but it seems to me that we could rely on that language. Okay, so that's number one. And then number two is within the working groups, discussion. You might arrive with, factoring in the expressed parameters Denise stated. For a relative, the role and distinctions between TCHOC and BBC. What additional reporting requirements we would like to see, or more detailed reporting requirements we would like to see in the grant agreements concerning the 5.5 Linden Street, but the three, and especially with respect to the 3.2 seabed preservation going forward. Right? Does that make sense? Again, I don't mean to.
No, and I didn't mean to conflate that TCHOC's responsibility is the same as TVC's. That's not my point. My point was, there is a way to do a dashboard. They have a dashboard, and I think we should be able to have one that we can adopt for this situation. I'm not saying it has to be the exact same, or that our responsibilities are the same. They're not. I was just using it as an example.
Well, I'm just gonna say it, while we're talking. I know we're gonna come up with something written so that we can all have a meeting of the minds and you can understand what is required and we will be happy with that and we'll get that in writing. But just so that we have an intuitive sense. And John, maybe you can express this, or Rhonda, like, if you had an explanation of what the 66 hours was, like at what level? Like, what do you, like, can you give for instance, what that might be? Just so that we all have an intuitive sense, like what amount of detail, what might that be?
So let's just say, for example, if you look at Chris Moyer, on February 3rd of 2025, he recorded 5.5 hours to this project. Okay, one increment of 2.5 hours, another increment of 1, another of 2. It would be the point of, I worked on this application, or I emailed the following people, or just something that represents that what he did during that period of time, and not down to 6 minutes or anything like that, and not down to just the 2, but for the day, what was that comprised of 5.5 hours? What did it consist of in a summary form?
May I just ask a question, just because you're trying to clarify this? So if we go to the disbursement request number 20, right? This is what we're doing about Christmas. We go to the notes. So this is page. We get to those pages that have
Is
the
it
yellow.
page 5 in the PDF?
On my computer, it's not. Page 4.
PDF, yeah.
Could we just take a look at the notes there?
What date? Is it February 20th?
Yeah.
So this, to me, I read these notes saying these are things that have taken place or will take place. None of these speak to what Chris Moyer did on February
So
3rd.
just to clarify, those are my notes that I have provided based off of the only thing that I could find in the CHA notes to the board. So you'll notice they're just the task order 5 repositioning strategy, design updates and financing. They're the headers of that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Those are your notes.
Those are just my notes, yeah.
So basically for a block of time. What happened in that block? What was accomplished?
So my question is that reflected in the notes?
It's not, in my view, it's not reflected in Cecilia's notes, nor what I expect it to be. And
Okay.
it's not reflected in what they present as their status report to the board dated February 20th, 2025. So those are the two things we have. And I don't think it's reflected in either of those.
And if I may, because I think we're having a really good conversation, but I think what Matt was trying to say as politely as he could, last time we talked about this, that they do not have a system in place to capture, a timekeeping system to capture that every day. So, on a go forward basis, if they are going to have to build one for what they do, and maybe, I'm not sure it would apply as much to other, things like, we'll have a typical kind of, construction budget with subcontracts, percent completions and so forth, but, they would have to build that. And that's what he meant by additional cost.
I mean, it looks like a spreadsheet.
I'm just trying to say, we need to, I think we need to define what the committee expects and needs. I think that's a great place to, and then figure out how to provide it. Because we're not, and we don't have to look at what's in the contract right now versus what's in the, the grant agreement right now versus what's going in the future grant, because we want to not have this discussion every month, but I think if we can define, if we had, let's take one of these invoices and say, let's imagine what that report would look like that would satisfy this committee and have the committee have consensus about what that is. And say, can you, first of all, we want this on a go forward basis. And secondly, is there any way you can reconstruct what that would be, even though you haven't been collecting that in your timekeeping system, which is what a typical law firm or any other professional consulting firm has, but they do not have. Yes, I think it could probably be reverse engineered. Like I could probably answer those questions right now tonight, because I know exactly what we were doing then. And that was when we realized there wasn't enough CPEA funds going around, and we had to, separate out the Siamese twin of the two projects, and we were burning the midnight oil to do that. The Seabeds and Cook projects, that is. And then we had to deliver another Seabeds only revised application, on no notice overnight kind of thing. So, we know, you can just look at what the emails were about, and you could create, I think, something the way what John is, I'm imagining what you're asking for, but I think if we had a real example, I think we could recreate that, as you say, just from other ancillary things like meeting agendas and meeting dates and emails going back and forth to everybody. It would be not that hard to do, because I've already right now burned it in my brain right this second. I could answer it now, but that's not the point. I think that would be very, very, very helpful if you could do that.
It does seem like the easiest, most efficient way is for whoever is billing at the time to keep record.
But they don't have a system that supports that.
But yet they want us, they charge as a
No, I'm
business,
just
and
saying,
they
they
charge
don't,
hourly
it's a
rates.
fact that they do not have it. I don't
It
wanna
could just be an
like,
Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It could just be an
It's
Excel.
not
spreadsheet.
elaborate.
Yeah.
This is an Excel spreadsheet.
I'm
You could have an
just saying,
additional column that has a
Yeah.
description of the work.
Right.
I've seen it.
I think we should define what the committee needs, and then we should figure out how to provide it without telling them how to provide it. Just say, do this or else, is what I would think would be right. I would think that would be very helpful. And I can tell you, that they are a public housing authority. They are not a company that's been doing private sector consulting for the last 50 years.
Yeah, so they're charging out hourly rates of $250, 180, 140. No one in this room is getting paid to be here right now, and I'm not, that's fine, I have no issue with it, this is how I decided to volunteer my time, but. You know, there comes responsibilities on both sides, and I just think that if you're charging things, rates like that, you have a responsibility to tell people what you're doing for that charge. In my view, and I guess, you know, I think I would find it disappointing that someone who's charging that doesn't understand that that should be a responsibility of theirs.
Yes, it does seem doable. You open up the spreadsheet, you say the hours, and right next to it, you say what you did.
On a go-forward basis,
On a
that
go-forward
can
basis.
definitely be done.
And that's. you
And
know,
that's what we're gonna do going forward. I'm not looking for them to go back and do it. I'm not asking for that. There's.
And I'm not
there's
saying
better-
that it
there's-
isn't easy to do on a
but
go-forward basis.
It's frustrating that we're here, in this position, but I think we've articulated what we need to do to go forward, and we're gonna be spending, or we're gonna be asked to reimburse some pretty significant funds going forward. And so we need to be in a position when we do that to have all this done ahead of time, so we're not in this same position.
Can I ask one clarifying question? So when I'm receiving these, I know what, to make sure that I have everything that the committee is looking for. And when we say in a go forward fashion, are we talking about any reimbursements that are submitted to me from this day forward, or any reimbursements that are submitted for invoices for work that is completed from this day forward?
The latter.
Okay, I just
Just
wanna make sure.
Because they, I mean, as John was saying, they can't really recreate, but as you're going, I spent 2 hours. In that 2 hours, I produced a drawing, or I prepared for a meeting, or I held a conference call, or whatever I did in that 2 hours. And I write it.
Yep.
Right, that's what we're talking. Spreadsheet. Start and task. So we do have some reimbursements in front of us tonight. I guess maybe just to close out this discussion though. So John, you're gonna, and Denise, you guys are gonna look at this, and I mean, I think, you know, the goal is something that is easy to do on a going forward basis, but informative and gives us what we need to know that the town money is being spent as authorized by town meeting.
Great.
So you do want to take us through the specifics?
Yeah, so. Annual Town Meeting 2023, Article 23, we have two requests, number 20 and 21. They're for work completed in February and March of this year under task order number 5, which indicates from the notes is just repositioning strategy, design updates, and financing. This article is reimbursed at 21.2%. Both the requests are in the amount of $2,271.58, and then $3,693.57.
Tria, do you want to take together a second?
We usually discuss together and vote no, but. Discussion?
Nothing further than what I've said already.
I think we've covered it.
And I move that we, for approval of the reimbursement as noted there.
Are we starting with 20?
Correct.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Rhonda?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, you were muted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Avery? Yes. John?
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Denise? Yes. And the chair votes yes.
So then the next one would be number 21.
Mhm.
And I move, our acceptance to make that reimbursement. I move our reimbursement for that.
Disbursement.
Disbursement.
369356.
Rhonda?
Yes.
Avery? Yes. John?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Denise? Yes. And the chair votes yes. Okay.
And then the next four are for annual town meeting 2019, Article 30, modernization and redevelopment of affordable housing. Their request number 16, 17, 18, and 19. This article is reimbursed at 50%. They are for work for the month of January of 2025, February of 2025, March of 2025, and April of 2025. This, I have attached the associated CHA reports to the Housing Authority. It looks like it's more closeout work as opposed to the prior one. This is the very early article that was requested 6 years ago now. So the requests are in the amount of $840, $752.50, $560, and $717.50. If all of these are approved, that will leave. Sorry, this got really small. I can't read it. $11,058.66 remaining in this article.
Discussion?
I just have a quick question about, so I'm just looking at all these different town meeting articles, and so we have money left over basically from allocations made in 2019, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Some of those are dedicated to a specific property, Linden Chambers, that's Cook. Is this money, just because it's sort of more broad, is this sort of used more of like a catch-all fund? Just curious about.
I can give a 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah.
The 2019 one was to kick off the preservation redevelopment initiative, figure out how we find the money and what order we do projects and what we should be doing. And then COVID happened. So we were going to get going right away in 2020 and didn't get going until 2022. So there's a 2-year delay built into that. Maybe that explains the timing.
Yeah, no, I was just
And
curious.
the second thing I just want to repeat, I've said before, is we've been doing this massive, incredibly complicated audit across 10 different funding sources, of which only some of them are the town funding sources, and then the ARPA grant and other funding sources, to make sure that everything's been charged in the right funding source, no mistakes have been made, and then nothing has been overlooked. There's no invoices that haven't been paid at all, or if they, a lot of things were rejected in the early years because they were imperfect, and then, forgotten about. And that was all going to be done by the end of last week. And then an emergency came up that was even more important than that, and that all got sidetracked. So we're hoping to get that done by the end of this month.
And I will note, unlike all the other articles, this one is not tied to any specific property.
Right.
Other than the housing authority, obviously, but
All the properties.
yeah.
Is how are we gonna do, it's the strategy of how.
Right.
Are we gonna do it over the next 15 years? And some of these little things are things that have just come out of the woodwork that somehow got overlooked here.
Further discussion?
I would make a motion to approve disbursement request number 16.
Second.
Rhonda?
Yes.
Avery? John?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Denise? Yes. And the chair votes yes.
Next motion would be to approve disbursement request number 17.
Rhonda,
Yes.
Avery? Yes. John?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Denise? Yes. Yes.
Following on the next motion would be to approve disbursement request number 18.
Second? Rhonda,
Yes.
Avery? Yes. John?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Denise? Yes. Chair votes.
Now, the last one is a motion to approve disbursement request number 19.
Rhonda? Oh, we didn't hear you, sorry.
Yes.
Avery? Yes.
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
And the chair votes. Okay. So we will have a meeting on December 8th. That is a quarterly update. I think somewhere it said as needed, but that is not as needed. That is required. And we think in terms of the, since this has gotten so much discussion, in terms of the expectations of reporting. Wondering what people around the room think. Is this something that should be happening in the background before our next meeting? Is it something that you guys would like to bring to the next meeting for discussion? Like what is,
I'll
Probably the
prepare,
best
I'll
way to do
prepare it
that.
and send it to Cecilia. So she can,
I was confused by that statement. I think we said we were going to meet together, we're going to meet Cecilia and Katie King and Chris Heath.
Then
We said,
I will prepare something and bring it to that meeting.
all right. That case, is there any other business?
before we adjourn, I would love to have some questions. One, if you could explain to us the grant that was received. And secondly, if I'm hearing that there was an emergency last week, you can tell us. I believe that was when the SNP benefits and what the it would be great to have these two.
Well, yes, it was the SNAP thing we've all read about, which has been a catastrophe for us. But why don't I do the funding first, or should I do it the second here? So I brought copies, should be enough for everybody here. So the $1.15 million climate ready award that was questioned as to whether it was really there or not. September, we had been informed under embargo that yes, we had been awarded that, but they wanted to have a significant press of that. And that was held at 10 o'clock today in Beverly, Massachusetts. And you might notice the dude standing next to, there's to Secretary Ed Augustus. You might recognize the person there was there. Again, Katie King was invited and Heidi was invited, but they could not make it.
You can push yourself to the front, Reg.
Well, I thought my press aide did very well. I think our press aide did very well positioning me right on his left-hand side there. So I'm not complaining about the job that person did. No, those are all the award grant recipients that were invited to come. So it was the usual thing and it was great. That 1.1 million is just as essential as the town's 3.2 million in completing out the funding stack. And we are still looking at a complete funding stack. We're now applying for pre-development money to, we need to finish things out here. The application says we got funding as last week, we have the funding in sight. So something can go wrong. It's very, very thin. But this is a tremendous victory for us. And by the way, this was, and those reports from the Cambridge Housing Authority and, February, April, March, April, you see a reference, one-liner reference to that. They were the ones that identified this particular grant source and submitted the application. Here we are. So that's great. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, everybody keep their fingers crossed, rub their lucky rabbit's foots or whatever people do. We all know what happened with the SNAP benefit thing, and it's safe to say that a good, more than a majority of our residents rely on that to a lesser or greater amount. So it's been a catastrophe for us, no different than the other 40 million people in the country, or, and when we were kept hoping that at the very last minute this wouldn't happen, but not this weekend, but the weekend before, we kind of had an emergency sort of get together about all that, and meeting led by Cheryl Gosman, our executive director, and Cheryl had identified an emergency grant source that, on a very little information with about a 24-hour turnaround period would accept an emergency grant for something like this. Not for just ordinary stuff, but, and so on Monday, we put out a robocall to all of our residents. It's the only way we've reached people saying, anybody who's got a problem, call in, literally, there's no time to do anything more organized, and they did. And by Tuesday, close of business Wednesday, we had about 50 residents, and about $20,000 a month of, money we don't have, month of benefit they were receiving, and it was self-reported, and then the grantor of this emergency grant accepted. We decided, well, let's just see if we can get everybody through the first week without doing that. And the easiest way to do that was to get Roach Brothers gift cards that work at both Roach Brothers and Sudbury Farms. And we contacted them on an emergency basis. They usually have a 3-day turnaround time, but they did terrific. They said, whatever you need to do, just walk in, give us a check, and we'll, whatever they do to generate the gift card, load up the gift cards. Our version of the Needham EFT cards, the Needham Housing Authority. And so that happened, I think, Wednesday afternoon or so, when there was we just got confirmation the grant's on the way. The actual cash was on the way, but we got a confirmation last Wednesday that the award had been, it had been approved and check was in the mail on a trustworthy basis. So we took some money out of one of our orphan bank accounts and said, $4,775, yes, happens to be 25% of the people that contacted us as the robocall, which is not everybody, but it's all we could do. And they all came in Thursday and Friday, picked up their gift cards and made it through the first week. And then we've been talking since Friday, in case anybody hasn't been tracking this very carefully, but I think many of us have, every 4 to 6 hours, there was a new story as to what was going to happen in terms of district courts ordering the federal administration to pay it, and then Supreme Court staying that, and then another time it happened. And I don't even know where things are today, to be honest with you, because in one of those windows when the state could pay, and it wasn't, there was like a 6-hour window, Governor Healy announced, and there's a press release conference earlier today I haven't listened to, telling us what actually happened, but they had snuck a payment out to load up all the cards, and then the window closed again. But we don't know what they paid, wasn't because they pay on a rolling basis in case, so they don't, everybody's card in Massachusetts or even the housing authority doesn't get loaded up on November 1st. They stagger it through the month. So, it's not, there's a lack of information. And so, over the weekend, we identified we figured, well, maybe we have to cover another 25% for this week, or maybe we don't. We'll just have to wait and see what the governor's office, announces, which I don't even know the answer today. Not sure anybody, maybe we don't know. But in the meantime, I think another robocall's gone out to our customers, our residents. Customer service is what we're trying to do here. And, oh, and I forgot, Thursday and Friday, another 25 people heard about, missed it the first time and came in and registered by, so we're now up to 50 or 60 as of this morning when I last checked in about that. You know, there are many more people who need them. They're scrambling on this, by the way. The community council, the food pantry is, you've been reading about, those stories you read about are, we're experiencing right now, you know, in need of. And people are hungry, and that's just ridiculous. That's just wrong.
And to John's point, that none of us, except for the town staff, are sitting here getting paid for being here, but we're all pulling in the same direction for these folks to know that the Needham Housing Authority moves so quickly for vulnerable folks, the Charles River Center, it's a Rich Homes in Needham.
Same thing, right?
Trying to activate very rapidly, the Needham Community Council. The number of calls they're receiving is increasing on a daily basis. And I just think when we get through all of the line items in the Excel sheet and everything, we remember that these are our friends and neighbors. We're pulling for them every day. Thank you for that.
A special shout out to Cheryl Smith.
Amen.
For her work. Longtime resident of, and you know, somebody with her experience, really. Thank her for that.
Second.
Rhonda,
Yes.
Avery, Tom,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
Sarah, yes, we are adjourned.
Everybody have a copy?
It's very exciting.